Good morning. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is temper. We use the word in the context of hold your temper, or they've got a bad temper, or they're ill-tempered. So normally the word, when we use it, is associated with sort of a negative connotation, but we could say that someone is good-tempered too. We could also be talking about the temper of steel and tempering steel. And I think that all of these definitions apply to our lives, and we get to look today at how we can integrate that concept of tempering into our lives. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this Monday morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. And before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, the tickling, the tingling, and allow that sensation to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, temper. It's interesting. I love wordplay. So the word that originally came up was the word temperance. And interestingly, temperance has to do with not drinking alcohol. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting how that is associated with the word temper, and also the word temperature. What temperature has to do with heat and measuring heat. And when we think of temper, we typically think of anger. I'm looking things up in the dictionary as we speak, so I'm just going to read the definition for temper, because I found it really, really interesting. And when we talk about our own evolution and the way that we respond, or the challenges that we face in life, tempering has a lot to do with it. So Rosalind says, temper is anger in the heat of the moment. Well, that's how we're taught to look at it, actually, but it isn't necessarily just associated with anger. And so I found this really interesting. So temper, in fact, is a particular state of mind or feelings. Isn't it interesting that we associate it with anger? Temper is a habit of mind, especially with respect to irritability or patience, outbursts of anger, or the like, disposition. So we associate it with anger, but it also has to do with calm or patience. And now to your definition, Rosalind, it says heat of mind or passion. And there we have the word heat, which goes to temperature. Take the temperature of the room, right? It's not really talking about measuring the actual heat or coolness of the room. It's measuring the social vibe, calm disposition or state of mind is one of the definitions as a noun. And also a substance added to something to modify its properties or qualities. It's also relating to metal, and this was one of the associations I was making, is the degree of hardness and strength imparted to a metal as by quenching, heat treatment, or cold working. And the archaic definition is a middle course or compromise. So, and there are a bunch more definitions: to soften or tone down, to temper the mood, for instance. So this one is for instance, for glass, to produce internal stresses in glass, for example, by sudden cooling from low red heat, to toughen, to tune, as in a piano. So when we talk about tempering, we might think about it like temper your mood, temper your anger. In other words, chill, chill out, relax. Or we might hear it as an admonition, to put a lid on it, kind of thing. But when we look at the trials and tribulations that we experience in life, when we look at the challenges that we confront in life, and the obstacles that we overcome and are confronted with and either succumb to or overcome, all of these instances, all of these events can be seen as tempering. In other words, toughening us, giving us strength. I'm sure we've all heard the saying, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I used to live by that, and I used to create inadvertently, I used to create all kinds of things that made me feel like they might kill me. But so I stopped using that as an anthem. But in the process, when we confront things, when we overcome things, when we move through challenges, we typically end up stronger. Sometimes it may level us, at least for a while. But then what happens is, as we build back, hopefully, we build back on a stronger foundation. And so I thought, this notion of tempering, it's also coming out of a conversation I had over the weekend. I've shared with you that I have the wonderful privilege of meeting on a weekly basis for a conversation that I typically find very, very stimulating, with a man who is a Torah scholar, and I don't know if he would call himself a Kabbalist or not, but he's very, very profoundly schooled in the deeper meaning of Torah. And I'm not religious, and I can say that I am endlessly curious about the knowledge that he shares. And we were, let me see, I lost the context of this for a second. So we were talking about the trials. So Rosalind says, interesting. So temper is not always associated with hatred. I don't think temper really truly is ever associated with hatred. It may be associated with anger. but anger and hatred are not equivalents, right? I can be really angry and it doesn't mean I'm hating. It could mean I'm deeply frustrated, or I'm resisting an injustice, or but it doesn't. I guess anger can be associated with hatred, but I don't think that that is a necessary equivalency. And I think that's really important for us to recognize. If someone gets angry at us, it doesn't mean that they hate us. It means they're angry. And that's a really important distinction, I think. In my hypotheses, and I'm not speaking it as truth, just as my perspective. Hatred comes. They say that love and hatred are two sides of the same coin. I was going to say that that hatred is a lack of connection, but I don't know that that's really true. Hatred might be a projection of connection, or like this deep feeling of violation that comes through connection, perhaps. I'm not certain about that, but just to entertain those ideas. And by the way, if you guys are writing comments and I'm not responding, it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's because I don't see the comments. So if you want to be seen, what you want to do is go to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page or Enlightened World Network YouTube channel, and you can put comments in there and they should show up. Anyway, so to get back on track here, we were having this conversation about all the trials and tribulations and what happens, what the Torah says about what's going to happen in the redemption. And I found it really, really fascinating. But the conversation came up, why all the pain and suffering? That's the standard question. If there is a God and if God is benevolent, why so much suffering? And supposedly in the redemption, which I'm, like I said, I'm not religious and I don't have a lot of schooling in what the Bible says, for example, Old or New Testament for that matter. But in the redemption, supposedly every bit of suffering and pain goes away, and there's a resurrection, and there's this transformation to, I guess we could say, perfection. But the point of all the suffering is to be able to recognize the I guess the contrast, to be able to know that something profound has happened in that shift. And that brings us back to this idea of tempering and honing ourselves, refining ourselves, that as we experience life and we learn its lessons, that we become stronger. And with steel, it's becoming harder. I guess that we could be having experiences that make ourselves harder, but hopefully instead they make us more resilient, more adaptable, more able to weather tougher circumstances. And so if we look upon our past, if we look upon the challenges that we've had in our lives, we may be still in a phase where we're experiencing those things as wounds. And we may find ourselves crippled by some of these experiences. And I invite you to look, even though it's really challenging, to look at these circumstances, to see what the gift is. And I know that some of you, many of us, have experienced some heinous things in our lives. And this brings us back to the conversation of victimhood versus empowerment. And regardless of the circumstances, there is a choice to find a path to empowerment. And it may be too soon. Your wounds may be too raw to be able to do that in this moment. And at some point, I hope you receive the invitation to look for the gift. So I did this with my clients in a group session, and there was a lot of resistance. People felt a lot of resistance to that. Like, you got to be kidding. This was a horrible experience in my life. How could there possibly be a gift in it? And once moving through the resistance to explore the possibility, each and every one of those people was able to find a gift. And in finding that gift, what happens is that we transform our relationship to that traumatic experience, to that horrible or horrifying experience, or something that felt that way at the time. And then that's our path to empowerment. That's our path to transformation, truly. So Rosalind says, we have the power to regulate how we decide what we feel and how we're going to act. Truly open heart, let go past, forgive, reset our baseline into more harmonious, elevated state, gain new freedom. Quote from Dr. Joe Dispenza. Thank you so much for that, Rosalind. I so appreciate that. I love Dr. Joe's work. Joe Dispenza, if you are not familiar, please go check him out. He's actually on the cutting edge of proving the power of meditation for healing, for wellness, for possibility. And he's in a scientific way, which is really exciting because he's got such a big test group that it's really gleaning attention from more conventional channels, which is really exciting. And I had the privilege of going to one of his advanced intensives for a week, and it was super powerful, super powerful. I look forward to going to another one of his events. So now the thing is, we do have the power to regulate how we decide what we feel and how we're going to act. And that doesn't mean spiritual bypassing. It doesn't mean not being present to the dynamics of the feelings that are occurring for us. And when we look at experience, to get back to this notion of transforming trauma, we get to be at cause or to be at effect in our lives. And when we are at cause, when we operate from a place of being at cause, the experience of living is so much more rewarding, can we say, so much more fulfilling than when we are at the effect of life. And regardless of our circumstances, in any circumstance, there is a place from which we can choose. Even if heinous things might be being done to us, there are circumstances when that happens. There is a place of choice as to where we put our consciousness, where we put our attention, and how we interpret the experience. You know, there are times when we're so overcome by depression that the whole world looks dark, you know, that the world looks like a terrible place. And that is a projection of our internal experience, right? When we're feeling helpless and hopeless, the world looks like a scary and bleak place to be. And when we have a sense of our own presence and our own power to choose, the experience of the world also shifts with that choice. And even knowing that we have the opportunity to choose allows us some strength. Even when we're not always able to choose the thing that is going to empower us most, just knowing that we have the ability to choose gives us the option, you know, to shift things around at some point when we feel stronger. You know, the thing I want to encourage is, particularly when you're in that place of weakness and pain, you know, feeling weak, feeling the pain, feeling at the effect, don't beat yourself up for not doing otherwise, you know, because that's just adding insult to injury. Just recognize that the choice is there when you're ready. Don't make yourself wrong for not making that choice. You know, what you need in those moments is compassion, not judgment. You don't need you know, like some people benefit from, you know, taking a hard line with themselves and saying, okay, that's it. Get up and out of this. That's enough. You know, some people respond well to that. Other people, not so much, you know, so you get to calibrate what's going to be appropriate for you in your treatment of yourself. Oftentimes the suffering that we experience externally, we then internalize and continue with those behaviors for ourselves. I remember when I used to have a lot of friction with my family. And as a kid, I definitely pushed the boundaries, you know, and what I noticed was that when I got to college and my parents weren't there for me to push against or to be at battle with, I internalized it. I internalized that whole conversation. I internalized all those internal judgments. Good morning, Jenny. Welcome. So good to have you here with us. I'm sorry, I was reading what you wrote, and I'm seeing that you're suffering and struggling. And so Rosalind says, so transcending rather than bypassing. Yes, we don't want to be bypassing. And so Jenny, I hear that you're suffering and struggling, and I send you so much hope and love and strength for you to be able to find your feet, find your power, and maybe make a choice to do something, take some action, whether, like even like a physical action, to dance around or something that might help to shift that state. Look at the ways in which you're interpreting events, and there may be an inroad there in which you can make a shift that reduces the experience of suffering for yourself. Rosalind says, how do we rationalize while being subjective? So being okay in the moment, testing stories, continuing to dissolve illusions. Exactly. We don't typically get to just snap our fingers and make night to day kinds of transformations, and Jenny, in your struggles, I suggest compassion for yourself and gentleness. And if you treat yourself as you would treat someone that you loved who was struggling, and allow yourself that kind of support. So I hope that's helpful to you. Anyway, that's today's topic. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on Enlightened World Network's Facebook page at each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. So I invite you to join us, come back, participate in the conversation. You make it so much richer. And I so appreciate you and the time that we spend together. Much, much gratitude. Please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and Enlightened World Living and EWN One with the Earth. It's a very heartfelt, connected community of healers and seekers and transformers. So with that, so much love, so much appreciation. And I just hope to see you again here really soon.